In October of 1943, Winston Churchill stood before the House of Lords to discuss the rebuilding of the bombed-out House of Commons. He famously argued against changing the shape of the room, insisting that the confrontational, rectangular design was essential to British democracy. He concluded his argument with a sentence that has since become the cornerstone of environmental psychology: "We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us." We tend to view the spaces we inhabit as passive backdrops, containers for our lives. We think of furniture arrangement as a matter of aesthetics or simple utility. We move the sofa there because it fits. We put the desk there because the outlet is nearby. But Churchill was right. The arrangement of our physical environment exerts an invisible, constant pressure on our cognition, our emotional regulation, and our social interactions. When you walk into a room, your brain does not merely see a collection of objects. It reads a script. It decodes cues about safety, hierarchy, intimacy, and purpose. If you have ever felt inexplicably drained after an hour in a specific room, or suddenly focused when entering a library, you have experienced the psychological power of spatial arrangement. In this video, we are going to deconstruct the psychology of space, moving beyond simple interior design tips to understand how the geometry of your home rewires your brain. To understand why we feel comfortable in certain layouts and anxious in others, we have to look much further back than modern architecture. We must look to the Pleistocene era. Evolutionary psychologists point to the Savannah Hypothesis, or the theory of prospect and refuge, popularized by geographer J. Appleton. For our ancestors, survival depended on two simultaneous needs. First, they needed prospect, a clear view of the surroundings to spot prey or predators. Second, they needed refuge, a place where they could hide and where their back was protected from surprise attacks. We no longer scan for saber-toothed tigers, but our amygdala, the brain's fear center, has not updated its software. This is why the most critical mistake people make in their home offices is placing their desk facing a wall, with their back to the door. In environmental psychology, this causes a state of continuous, low-level vigilance. Your subconscious is forced to allocate cognitive resources to monitor the unseen space behind you. The antidote to this is what designers call the command position. By rotating the desk so that your back is protected by a solid wall and your field of vision captures the room's entrance, you satisfy the primitive need for prospect and refuge. This arrangement signals to the nervous system that the environment is secure. When the brain stops scanning for danger, it releases those cognitive resources for deep work, creativity, and complex problem solving. It is not magic. It is simply removing the biological friction of insecurity. If the command position governs our relationship with ourselves, we must next ask how furniture governs our relationship with others. In the 1960s, anthropologist Edward T. Hall coined the term proxemics to describe the study of how humans use space. He discovered that we carry invisible bubbles of territory around us: intimate distance, personal distance, social distance, and public distance. Furniture arrangement is essentially the physical manipulation of these bubbles. Designers categorize layouts into two distinct psychological modes: sociofugal and sociopedal. Sociofugal arrangements are designed to keep people apart. Think of the waiting room, the bus station, or the living room where every single piece of furniture is pointed at a television. This layout directs attention outward, discouraging eye contact and creating a grid of isolation. It tells the inhabitants that the screen is the dominant member of the social group. Contrast this with sociopedal arrangements, which are designed to pull people together. This is the campfire model. By angling chairs inward to face one another, generally at a 90-degree or 180-degree angle, you force the intersection of gaze. This geometry makes it socially awkward not to acknowledge the other person. The arrangement itself lowers the activation energy required to start a conversation. If your household feels disconnected, look at your living room. Are you arranged in a line, or are you arranged in a circle? The geometry of the room dictates the depth of the bond. We have discussed the floor plan, but we must also consider the vertical axis. There's a fascinating phenomenon in architectural psychology known as the cathedral effect. Research suggests that the height of a ceiling, or the perceived height created by furniture, directly impacts the kind of thinking we are capable of. High ceilings and vertical lines tend to promote abstract, creative, and relational thinking. They prime the brain for freedom and exploration. Conversely, lower ceiling and horizontal lines promote concrete, detail-oriented, and focused thinking. You can manipulate this perception through furniture. Using tall, vertical bookshelves that draw the eye upward can simulate the cathedral effect, potentially boosting creative ideation. In contrast, keeping furniture low to the ground and utilizing horizontal lines can create a sense of containment and grounding, which may be preferable for tasks requiring intense scrutiny or execution. We must align the verticality of our furniture with the type of work we intend to do. A writer might benefit from the illusion of height. An accountant might benefit from the coziness of containment. Flow, friction, and cognitive load. Finally, we must address the concept of flow. In user interface design, we talk about reducing friction, making it as easy as possible for a user to click a button. Interior design is simply user interface for the body. Every time you have to navigate around an awkwardly placed ottoman or squeeze through a gap less than 30 inches wide, your brain registers a micro-stressor. You may not consciously notice it, but your spatial awareness system is firing a warning. This adds to your total cognitive load. We naturally seek desire lines, the path of least resistance. When furniture obstructs these lines, we create a living space that is essentially fighting us. By clearing major walkways and establishing a circulatory flow that mimics water moving through a channel, we stop the micro-leakage of willpower. A room that flows physically allows the mind to flow mentally. The environment ceases to be an obstacle course and becomes a support system. We often treat our homes as static things, finalize the moment we sign the lease or buy the couch. But the psychology of space teaches us that our environment is an active participant in our consciousness. It can soothe our primate fears, choreograph our social intimacies, and unlock our creative potential. Churchill was right. We shape our buildings, and then they shape us. But this implies that by reshaping our buildings, by rotating a desk, by angling a chair, by clearing a path, we have the agency to reshape ourselves. You do not need to renovate your home to renovate your life. You simply need to understand the psychology of where you sit.